Mr. Dorsey, obviously your first opportunity to select a head coach as a general manager in the NFL. I'm sure this is something you've thought about for a long time. Was the process what you expected it to be?
You know, we were very fortunate with regards to the process. We've had a chance for 9 weeks now to meet on a regular basis. And at the end of the day, when the committee brought the suggestion, and we had a unanimous committee on who the next head coach was going to be. We brought it to ownership. We got ownership's blessing. And that's why we're here today, because we have a man of a vision, a guy who's dedicated his entire life to this game of football, who's come up under some exceptional coaches. And, you know, it's going to be my honor to introduce everybody to the 17th head coach of the Cleveland Browns today.
So when people look at kind of your resume now in terms of your #1 overall pick, Baker Mayfield, now your first head coach, Freddie Kitchens, probably a year before you selected Baker Mayfield #1 overall, nobody said Baker's going #1 overall. And I'm sure a year ago, not many people even had Freddie Kitchens on their radar to be a head coach. What was it about him that made him so impressive to you, just like Baker did for you to select him #1 overall to be that head coach?
Well, I think with Freddie, the one thing is he had a resume on display for 8 weeks. I think what he did in those 8 weeks, he galvanized the offense. He put players in position to make plays. And then all of a sudden you hear his vision for this team moving forward. And then as you've seen recently, his ability to help build a staff. I mean, that is huge. And, you know, there's no finer man. I mean, we had 7 traits that we were looking for: leader of men, guys who were, you know, had integrity, that were secure, were collaborative thinkers, and were intelligent, had like a high football acumen. I mean, it was easy at the end of the day, after we went through a lot of qualified candidates. Unanimously, again, we all came to the conclusion that Freddie Kitchens was the proper man to move this organization in the future.
When you took over as the general manager, came in at the end of the 2017 season, I'm sure at that point you had a list of guys that you would consider when you had the opportunity to select a head coach to be on that list.
No, you know, I think any good personnel man who sits in my position has multiple lists of all kinds of different coaches, and it's always evolving year in and year out because it's, you know, it's always turning over. So you always have those lists, but the way we do things in Cleveland is unique because we use a collaborative thought process, which is good because you can have streams of information coming in, but at the end of the day, you take that information, at the end of the day, you talk about it, you make that decision, and you make that suggestion to ownership, and I mean, that's the proper way to do things.
At what point were you saying to yourself, Freddie Kitchens is somebody I have to consider to be the head coach? Because he comes in as the associate running back coach to start the year, becomes offensive coordinator. You mentioned his 8-week resume, but at what point did you say, I think this guy could be the one?
Well, I think what it is I think early on in the process, the committee, we came down and we talked about the qualities of men that would lead that. And he instantly fit into those categories, and it was early in the process that we had said that Freddie, you know, is going to be a serious, he's going to be a serious candidate for this position. And, you know, he came in, he knocked his interviews out of the ballpark, and it just reaffirmed and re-solidified exactly what each and every one of us were thinking from the onset.
Was that strategic that he was the last interview?
Well, it's always, you know, we don't want to give away too much secrets on how we go about doing our business, but it's, you know, you kind of do things methodically for a reason.
You mentioned earlier he came in and wowed you with what his vision was for this team and this organization moving forward. Yeah. What is that?
Well, I think, again, you see the quality of coaches that he's added to our list. I think that the offense will speak for itself. He's got a great defensive coordinator in Steve Wilks. He's got an excellent special teams coach in Mike Prefer. And then slowly he methodically gets, you know, he builds his staff together, and then we're lucky enough to get an offensive line coach like James Cameron. And then you're lucky enough to get a running backs coach like Stump Mitchell. I think that speaks volumes for not only Freddie's ability to bring staffs together, but it shows you the direction this organization is headed.
Do you expect Freddie to continue to call plays?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what he does. I mean, Freddie does a great job with that. But when you have an offensive coordinator like Coach Monken, I mean, there's a guy right there that you can bounce so many different ideas to. And I would love to sit in those staff meetings and watch Todd and Freddie and Stump and Camp and just talk about, the game plan offensively coming into the next week.
When you go up and think back about those final 8 games and the impression you mentioned in that resume, what was it? Because you can all see the play calling, but what was it about his relationship with the players and specifically Baker Mayfield to let you know this is the right man to lead a group of men to where we all want to get?
Well, I think he identified what needed to be fixed, and he fixed it quickly. When you go into mid-season like he did, it's hard. He's placed in a hard position. And week in and week out, he demonstrated that his ability to call the game was pretty good. And you watch guys begin to come closer together and believe in what Freddie's doing, and all along the process, he made it look easy. And, I mean, that's a mark of an excellent coach.
When you see the successful franchises in the NFL, typically there is a head coach and a quarterback who have a great relationship.
Yeah.
And just from me being on the sideline, I could see Freddie and Baker clearly have a great relationship. What's special about that relationship, and how important of a factor was that?
Well, I've always been taught that if your quarterback is like-minded and thinking with the head coach, that's a beautiful thing, because they think and see things identically. And that's all you can ask for. And I think those two, during the course of that second half of the season, they began to develop that type of relationship.
What are your expectations for Freddie as a head coach?
I would say high. I think, again, he's one of those guys that can galvanize and unify an organization. And I've always said, never underestimate Freddie Kitchens.
Now that you've got your head coach, you've got the coordinators you've talked about in place, what's next for you trying to get them, the players, to make this run to the playoffs we all want?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna stay in the office for the rest of the week and be there to help Freddie along the process. If anything I can help him with, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Mobile, Alabama on Monday, go down to the Senior Bowl, and then after the Senior Bowl, then we begin to get into our planning in terms of what direction we're headed in the 19 season, and that is from an overall team evaluation, unrestricted free agency, college draft. We're beginning to prepare right now for the 2019 season.
How exciting is today for you to get to go? A year ago, you had the general manager's dream, you get the #1 pick. This year, you get to name your head coach. How big of a day is this for you?
It's awesome. I don't think it should be just exciting for me. I think it should be excited for all Cleveland Browns fans, wherever they may be, because, again, what we're attempting to do is awake this sleeping giant we talk about.
Oh, I think it's awake, and now we're going to have a lot of fun. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.